Pride is the only sin that feels like a virtue while you have it. Anger feels like anger. Fear feels like fear. Greed has a recognizable shape, but pride, the real version, can present itself as standards. It feels like integrity. It feels, almost always, completely justified, which is what makes it the one thing in the Bible that is hardest to look at honestly. Because you cannot fight something you cannot see, and pride is extraordinarily good at making itself invisible, especially to the person who has it. James 4:6. God opposes the proud but shows grace to the humble. The word opposes in Greek is antitasomai. It is a military term. God does not sigh at pride. He does not patiently wait it out. He arranges himself against it, actively, personally. That is a remarkable thing to say about one sin in particular. And it demands that we take it seriously, especially the version that lives in the ordinary daily life of people who love Jesus and are still, quietly, placing themselves at the center of their own story. So, in today's study, we're going to learn from 3 people in the Bible who did exactly that. And then we're going to look at one person who did the opposite, completely, and what that cost him. The first portrait, Saul. 1 Samuel 15. Saul is the first king of Israel. He has been given a direct instruction by God through Samuel. The point of the scene is simple. Saul was told to obey completely, and he did not. Saul goes. He defeats the Amalekites, and then he keeps the best sheep and cattle to sacrifice to God, he says, and he brings back the Amalekite king Agag alive. Samuel arrives, and Saul greets him with this sentence, "I have carried out the Lord's instructions." And Samuel says, "Then what is this bleating of sheep that I hear?" Now watch what Saul does, because this is the anatomy of pride in real time. First, he deflects. The soldiers did it, not me. Then he reframes. We kept the best animals to sacrifice to God. Then he minimizes. I did obey, and mostly. Then he asks for honor, anyway. Verse 30. Please honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel. Please honor me. He has just been told that his partial obedience has cost him the kingdom, and his response is, please honor me in front of everyone. This is the portrait of pride as image management, not the boastful kind, the defensive kind, the kind that cannot receive correction without immediately building a case against it. That deflects, that reframes, that minimizes, that, even in the moment of being held accountable, is still thinking about how it looks in front of others. And what Samuel says to Saul is a clear diagnosis of pride in the Old Testament. Verse 17. Although you were once small in your own eyes, did you not become the head of the tribes of Israel? Although you were once small in your own eyes. Once, Saul did not think much about himself at all. When he was first presented to Israel as king, he was hiding among the baggage, genuinely overwhelmed, genuinely small in his own estimation. Something changed. The position, the power, the years of being the most important person in the room, slowly, imperceptibly, the center of Saul's story shifted from God to Saul. Not dramatically, not in one moment, gradually, until partial obedience felt like full obedience, and the first thought after correction was still about how it would look. Pride does not usually arrive as arrogance, it arrives as drift, the slow, almost invisible movement from small in your own eyes to the person who cannot receive correction without defending themselves. And Saul never recovered from it. The rest of his story is what happens when pride has no break: paranoia, jealousy, violence, isolation. He spent the last years of his life trying to kill the man he felt most threatened by. Because that is the second thing pride does once it has made you the center. It turns everyone else into a threat or a tool. The people who affirm you are useful. The people who outshine you are dangerous. There is no category for someone who is simply more gifted than you, and that is fine. Now let's turn our attention to Luke 15. prodigal son. As discussed in our study about repentance, the story is not just about the younger son. The younger son takes his inheritance early, wastes it, ends up in a pig pen, comes to his senses, and walks home. The father sees him while he is still a long way off, runs to meet him, puts a robe on him, a ring on his finger, calls for the celebration. The lost son is found. The dead son is alive. And then Luke 15:25. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. Meanwhile, while the celebration is starting inside, the older son is outside doing exactly what he has always done. Working. Faithful. Not wasting anything. Not running away from anything. In the field. He hears the music. He asks a servant what is happening, and when he finds out his brother has come home and his father has thrown a party, he refuses to go in. His father comes out to him. And the older son says, verse 29, "Look, these many years I have been serving you, and I never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. This son of yours, not my brother, this son of yours, he will not claim him. He is so far from joy at his brother's return that he cannot even use the word brother. And his speech is remarkable in its precision. Every sentence is about what he deserves. I have been serving you these many years. I never disobeyed. You never gave me. He wasted your property. You killed the fattened calf for him. He has been keeping a ledger for years. Faithfully, quietly, invisibly keeping a ledger of his service and his father's responses to it. And when the ledger did not balance, when someone who had not served got the party he had not received, the ledger came out. The father's response was heartbreaking. Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. The fattened calf was his. The robe, the ring, the celebration, all of it was always available to him. But he had been living in the father's house as an employee rather than a son. Serving, yes. Working, yes. But underneath the service, keeping score. Monitoring whether his output was being matched by the appropriate return, making sure the ledger balanced. And a person keeping a ledger cannot fully enjoy what they already have, because the ledger is always looking sideways at what someone else received, at whether it was proportionate, at whether the father's generosity toward another person somehow reduces what belongs to you. The older brother is not the villain of this story. He is the warning. The warning that you can be faithful for years, never disobey, never waste anything, and still be standing outside in the dark while the music plays. Because the faithfulness was never really about the father. It was about the record. And the record, in the end, made him unable to celebrate the thing the father most wanted to celebrate. This is the portrait of pride as entitlement, not arrogance, not boasting. The quiet, long-term, ledger-keeping belief that your faithfulness has earned you something, and that grace given to someone who has not earned it the same way is a kind of theft. This is the pride of people who would never call themselves proud. Let's now turn our Bibles to Luke 18:9. The Pharisee at prayer. Before Jesus tells the parable, Luke gives you something. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. Confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Luke wants you to know who Jesus is talking about before the story begins. Two men go to the temple to pray. The Pharisee stands and prays. God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. Everything in this prayer is probably accurate. He very likely does fast twice a week. He very likely does tithe. He has probably not committed robbery or adultery. He is not lying about any of it. But notice what the prayer is doing. It is addressed to God. But it is not actually talking to God. It is talking at God about himself. It is a performance conducted in the presence of heaven with an imaginary audience in mind. He is not coming to God because he needs something. He is presenting credentials. He is telling God, and anyone within earshot, why he belongs in this room. And the measuring stick he uses to establish his righteousness is not God's standard. It is other people's failures. I am not like robbers. I am not like adulterers. I am not even like this tax collector. He has found the lowest comparisons available, placed himself above them, and called it righteousness. This is what makes the Pharisees' prayer so different from the tax collectors. The tax collector stands far away, does not look up, or beats his chest. He prays, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. No credentials, no comparison, no record of service, just the actual distance between who he is and who God is, named honestly, with a request. And Jesus says, the tax collector went home right with God, not the Pharisee. Now here is what most people miss about this parable. The Pharisee is not stupid. He is not malicious. He is sincere. He genuinely believes he is doing well. He genuinely believes this prayer is appropriate. He has no idea that what he is offering God is a performance rather than a prayer. And this is the most disturbing portrait of the three. Because Saul knew somewhere that he had not fully obeyed. The older brother knew somewhere that something was wrong. His anger was the signal. But the Pharisee does not know. He walks away from this prayer feeling fine, feeling righteous. This is the portrait of pride as blindness, not a sin you are fighting, a condition you cannot see from inside it. The prayer that is about you, addressed to God, the worship that is watching itself worship, the service that is half aware of being seen. This is why the anatomy matters so much, because if pride were obvious, if it announced itself clearly, it would be much easier to deal with. But it does not. It feels like faithfulness. It feels like standards. It feels like maintaining the right things for the right reasons. And underneath it, quietly, invisibly, you are the center of your own story. What all three have in common. Saul, the older brother, the Pharisee. Three different expressions, three different circumstances, three different things they were holding on to. Saul was holding on to his reputation. The older brother was holding on to his record. The Pharisee was holding on to his righteousness. But underneath all three, the same structure. Each of them had placed himself at the center of his own story. Each of them was measuring his standing before God and before people by something he had produced or maintained or achieved. Each of them experienced grace shown to someone else as a threat to that standing. Saul could not bear David's success. The older brother could not bear his brother's restoration. The Pharisee could not pray without referencing the tax collector. And here's what that tells you about what pride actually is. Pride is not primarily about thinking too highly of yourself. It is about being the measuring stick of your own story. The moment you make yourself the standard, the moment your righteousness, your record, your reputation becomes the thing you are building your sense of standing on, you are in the territory all three of these men occupied, not because you are arrogant, because you are human. Because every human being, left to their own devices, will drift toward the center of their own story. It is the default position. It is what Genesis 3 produced, the I will of Isaiah 14. I will make myself like the Most High, is not a dramatic satanic ambition that lives only in villains. It is the quiet, daily, almost invisible tendency of every person who has ever lived to organize their world around themselves. And God, James says, opposes it. Not because he is threatened by it, because he knows what it costs, the paranoia it produces, the ledger it creates, the music that plays inside while you stand in the dark outside unable to go in, the prayer that goes nowhere because it was never really addressed to anyone but yourself. Now go deeper. Underneath the reputation, the record, the righteousness, why does a person build their standing on those things in the first place? Because they are afraid. Afraid that without the reputation, without the record, without being able to point to something, they will not be enough. That the real version of themselves, without the credentials, without the comparison, without the performance, is not the kind of person who deserves to be loved or to belong or to occupy the space they are in. Pride is the structure fear builds when it needs somewhere to stand. Saul's paranoia was not primarily about David. It was about what David's success said about Saul's sufficiency. If David is this good, what does that make me? The older brother's ledger was not primarily about the younger son. It was about the fear that without the record of service, without the years of never disobeying, there was no basis for his place in the Father's house. The Pharisee's prayer was not primarily about the tax collector. It was about the need to establish, even before God, that he belonged in this room, that he was not the kind of person who needed mercy, that he had grounds. All three are people trying to build a floor to stand on, and they built it from the wrong materials, performance, comparison, record, because they did not know there was another floor available. The only floor strong enough. If pride is fear building a floor, then the only real cure is a floor that was already there before the performance began. Psalm 139 verses 1-2. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You have searched me, and you know me. Every thought, every hidden motive, every moment when the tight feeling rose before you could stop it. Searched, known, familiar. And then, verse 17. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. The one who knows you completely and finds you precious. Not before the knowledge, because of it, with full information. This is the floor that makes the performance unnecessary. When the deepest, most complete knowledge of you that exists comes back with precious, not conditional, not contingent on the record or the reputation or the comparison, the whole structure that pride was building starts to feel like what it is. Unnecessary weight,